Hi there, my name is Fiona. I'm a recovered insomniac, and for today, I would like to share my own personal insomnia recovery story and specifically my insomnia struggle. I used to find so much comfort and so much reassurance from hearing other people's stories. It used to really make me feel like I wasn't alone, that my insomnia was not unique, and that recovery was also fully possible for me. So, into my story. My insomnia first started in the summer around July time of 2023. I had a lot of change going on in my life at that time. I moved cities. I moved in with a partner at the time. We're no longer together, but we moved in together. I had a lot going on with work. I'm also a yoga teacher. I was looking for new yoga studios where I could teach. I was trying to make new connections, find new routines, you name it, everything, all the change, everything was happening all at once. And initially, I didn't really think much of it. Experienced a few sleepless nights. I had a lot of things going on in my mind, a lot of things to ruminate on, and I experienced what normal sleepers, or like all of us, have just random nights where we just cannot quiet down our mind. And that happened for maybe one, two, or three nights. And by around the third night, I started to get very anxious about the fact that I was not sleeping. So it started being more a fear of sleep and a very persistent kind of anxiety and persistent thought about the fact that I wasn't sleeping instead of actually like everything else that was going on in my life. I tried to speak to so many different people about like, okay, like why is this happening? How can I maybe get my sleep back? I've always practiced quite a lot of yoga. I felt like yoga was no longer helping calm my mind like it once was, which was also making me feel crazy. I started trying all these different types of like a sleep hygiene routines or supplements, over the counter medication, you name it. I went through the antihistamines, the melatonin, um, over the over the counter sleep medications as well, CBD as well. And no matter what I took or what I tried, I still felt like my mind would still like not quiet down at night, and specifically in bed. Like I used to find that I would sometimes be on the couch or somewhere else and I'd be able to fall asleep, but then as soon as I was in the bedroom, my mind was like fully awake and I would be tossing and turning and anxious for like hours on end. um, by August time, I fully thought that I was broken. I also felt like I was maybe going through a burnout, given the fact that I had just a lot of things going on. I decided to go see a doctor. I had also looked for therapy, but there was nobody in my area that would specialize in sleep or like sleep coaching. So I went to see a doctor who, now in hindsight, actually had absolutely no idea about insomnia either. And he suggested that I maybe break the cycle by changing my routine a bit. He said that my insomnia was situational, that it was completely normal, that a lot of people go through that. He also suggested I start taking sleeping pills and additionally prescribed me a week off from work, to give me kind of like a little bit of mental space. So I left the appointment feeling very hopeful, very much like, okay, I maybe finally have found a solution. It is, I'm not going crazy. I'm going to start taking the sleeping pills. He also suggested I don't take the sleeping pills for longer than 2 weeks and that they were pretty strong in doses. So I wouldn't actually need a whole pill to make me sleep, which was also somewhat comforting. And I also had a week off from work, like a week where I could maybe just focus on finding a little bit of my own footing in this new city, my routines, etc. And of course, having the sleeping pills in my life, I was sleeping fine. A few or like a week into that, I had a teacher training planned in Frankfurt, a city nearby, and I booked myself into a hotel. I tried to, again, just kind of break the cycle or break whatever kind of like habits I was like slowly forming. But looking back now, even with the sleeping pills, like I was very much fixated on sleep. I was very much fixated on the fact that I needed the pills, and I was always someone who tried to look for like the holistic route out of out of any issue, not just insomnia. And it didn't feel very like not very comforting to have to take a pill to be able to sleep. I then, I guess by the 2 week mark, the doctor suggested I only take sleeping pills for about 2 weeks. By the 2 week mark, I was not at all ready to give up the sleeping pills. So I decided to prolong the pills, like the package that I got prescribed had more than 2 weeks worth of pills. So I prolonged it. I'd break up the pills, and I ended up taking, I guess, sleeping pills for up to 6 weeks. And the week leading up to having that last pill, I was in a lot of distress. I was very much worried about the fact that I was not going to be able to sleep without them. But I slowly started preparing myself for like the fact that I didn't want to have or rely on pills. I had a friend actually tell me that perhaps insomnia was something that was trying to teach me a lesson. And even though it was very, very uncomfortable to be kind of like in that situation, that recovery would be possible, but I had to kind of just allow recovery to happen without trying to like band-aid fix the problem. So I went into, I guess, having no sleeping pills, full cold turkey. I tried my best not to do anything else, but I was still very much avoiding things late at night. I would avoid alcohol, I would avoid coffee, and the disordered kind of like patterns and perspectives on sleep just kept going on for quite a few weeks, and if not quite a few months. I tried my best not to think about it and tried my best to distract myself, and nothing truly like worked. I'd go through weeks where I could fall asleep and then other weeks where I couldn't, and I just felt like the pattern or like the insomnia itself would slowly and naturally fix itself. um I eventually came across a few YouTube channels of people actually sharing their own experience and how they holistically healed their own insomnia. This was about May, maybe even April 2024. So quite a bit after, like at least 6 or 7 months, like after I had even stopped taking the sleeping pills. Like the insomnia was just like a constant up and down yo-yo pattern in my day-to-day life. I was feeling quite anxious all the time, quite down all the time, very out of control um of my life really. But I just really felt like I had no solution and no way out of it. I had also heard of cbt-i, or cognitive behavioral therapy, for insomnia, and thought maybe I'd give that a try, but it also felt like it also implied quite a lot of control. And I was starting to also realize that insomnia, or like the way out of insomnia, was something that couldn't actually be controlled, that I couldn't actually control all of the different aspects of my sleep and my sleep routine in order to make myself sleep. So by April, I slowly started to come to those realizations, and I found someone, a holistic sleep coach actually, who had gone through the same. And looking back now, it actually saddens me that it took me such a long time to find someone who could truly help me. There's just so much misinformation in the internet and so much little like knowledge that goes around about insomnia. And I kind of jumped in head first. I was somewhat like hesitant about maybe doing his sleep coaching program, but I gave it a try. And it all really started with I like starting to educate myself a lot on insomnia and like why insomnia happens and like what the cycle of insomnia truly is. And as soon as I started learning about insomnia, a light bulb went off like in my mind. I was like, wow, this is actually a problem that I am personally perpetuating myself. It comes from my thoughts, my attitudes, my behaviors, my disordered thinking on sleep. And I started really feeling very hopeful that even though recovery wouldn't be overnight, that it was definitely in my hands to get better. That my body and my mind was also, even though like maybe stuck in this like repeat cycle, was also capable of breaking that cycle and finding restful sleep. Started off the program in May. I started receiving quite a lot of clarity around insomnia. I started implementing different behaviors, specifically journaling, a lot of thought work, a lot of like challenging my thoughts around sleep and the perspective of knowing that wakefulness was not a threat. I started getting out of bed at night when I couldn't sleep. I started trying my best to like really befriend wakefulness, or getting comfortable with the fact that even if I was awake, that was not something that I had to fear. And it slowly started to get better. I slowly started feeling a little bit hopeful during the day. I slowly started feeling like I was not so much focused on sleep all the time. I started to really feel like a reduction in my anxiety. I think it's just so easy for us to be fixated on having a quick and easy fix. And realistically, insomnia is not something that is fixed overnight. But if you put in the work, even just like after a couple of days or a couple of weeks of like just knowing what the patterns are, you slowly can break those patterns. um Also, part of my recovery is that it was not linear. Definitely a few like bulbs went off at the beginning when I first started learning about what insomnia or how insomnia happens, started to happen. But at the same time, I did have like little speed bumps, or I guess you can call them relapses or moments where I felt like I was going back into that same cycle. Those were scary, but I would just come back to a place where I knew that I could trust my body's natural ability to sleep. I knew that I could like rely on holistic mindfulness tools like meditation and also journaling to challenge my thoughts and attitudes. I tried my best to like still keep a similar wake schedule, so tried to like really regulate also my sleep drive. And over time, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I put in the effort. I am so glad that I even had this experience. Recovering from insomnia has been one of the hardest things that I've had to go through. Like, insomnia itself was definitely not easy, but recovering from insomnia was definitely so worth it. Like, I was so worth that. It was so worth that I put in the time and the effort. Um, and yeah, honestly, now I am sleeping better than I ever have slept before. Like, I can sleep on airplanes during like meal service and like not be disturbed by like people walking by or people turning on the lights, or when I'm sleeping. It's kind of crazy, but in a way, my sleep is better now than it ever was or ever has been in the past. And to that, I would also like to remind you that if you are struggling with insomnia, it's not about getting back to where you once were. It's really like you are becoming someone new. You can never go back to who you were, and in a way, maybe you're just like unraveling and becoming a better version of who you are.